All right, good morning. It is so good to be with you guys. And I want to thank Lisa and Pastor Dave and those of you who I've been speaking with and met this morning. What an amazing thing and ministry for your church to invest in. So thank you. As a mom and a former educator, I'm still an educator because I'm a mom. But this means the world to me to be able to share this morning with you. And so I want to give a quick overview of who I am, why I'm standing here, and then we're going to get into a little clip. And I believe it's the first slide, Alex, back there. But my name is Kelsi Rae. I am the Florida State Regional Manager for Turning Point USA Faith Department. I was with Charlie Kirk at an event 13 days before he died. And he was the most amazing boss in public, and he was even better in private, if you can believe that. This has been a wild ride for us as an organization, as you can imagine, but the growth we've experienced, the interest, the hunger, and the droves of people that we are seeing come to Christ in the last 9 months is unspeakable. And so if nothing else, if you hear nothing else from me this morning, have hope, have courage that things are changing. We are seeing it, and God is moving. So with that, will you play the clip for me?
What advice do you have for me as I move into adulthood in order to become a more informed and involved citizen?
Well, first of all, thank you for being here, and I have hope thanks to people like you. How old are you again?
13.
13. Here's a couple things I want to encourage you to do. Learn something new every single day, and focus on what it means to be a good person and a person of strong character. Aristotle said that courage is the ultimate virtue. Without it, there are no other virtues. If people aren't courageous, you don't have honesty. You don't have justice. You don't have beauty. You don't have wonder. And so at age 13, I want you to commit yourself to a life of courage. Courage is doing the right thing when you don't know how it's going to work out. Courage is committing yourself to the correct course of action, regardless of the cost associated to it.
Every human being, I believe, is made in the image of the divine, is sacred, is unique, and if we get away from this principle as we have, we not only have moral degradation, we not only have the collapsing society around us, but it's bad for that being itself. That being itself is unique, that being has rights, and who are we to say, just because we're older, that we get to murder it? Thank you.
It's still hard to watch sometimes. I want to talk this morning on courage. And I want to get just a quick show of hands because I don't obviously know most of you. Who here currently homeschools? Anybody? Okay. Who here is like, I think I might be interested, but I really need talked into this? Anybody on the fence yet? Fantastic. Thank you for your honesty. That took courage. Who of you don't even have kids yet? You're here to share service, information. You're just on the fringes of homeschooling, which is a great place to be because you're contributing. Okay, I am a homeschool mom of 4. My background very quickly is that I am a recent transplant to Florida. I moved down here at Christmas. I transferred with the department. I've been with Turning Point for 2 years. Prior to this and prior to joining on with TPUSA, I started a homeschool hybrid school under the Charlotte Mason Method of Education. It's a long thing that you don't have to worry about right now. But it grew to be the largest independent hybrid homeschool program in the nation. I ran it for 7 years. I turned it over to my staff. It was up in northern Indiana. So homeschooling and education is near and dear to my heart. I've homeschooled my kids all the way through. I have 1 married, 1 just graduated, and I have 2 boys at home that are stuck with me. So this is something that, though I work for the faith department, Charlotte Mason, who I love in the world of education, said there is no such thing as secular education. It does not exist because all wisdom and knowledge comes from God. So you cannot separate Shakespeare and the beauty of language from God. You cannot separate algebra and mathematics and logic and critical thinking from God because he is the author and creator. And so as I go through this today, and as we talk about courage, I want to lay out a couple stories, but I want to leave you with some actionable things that whether you're homeschooling or not, whatever child you have in your life, these are things that you can apply and things that you need to take away. I'm going to read you something. At St. John's Church, you can go to the next slide. At St. John's Church in Richmond, with George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and Richard Henry Lee in the pews, most of the Virginia Convention still hoped for reconciliation with Britain, pushing for militias felt like provoking a war nobody wanted. Dear Lord, are we not there right now in our country? Henry stood up and argued for arming Virginia's militia anyway, closing with a line that's now on classroom walls and coffee mugs. I know not what course others may take, but as for me, give me liberty or give me death. Understand what that actually was. A declaration like that read as treason against the crown and could get a man hanged. He wasn't a general. He wasn't the most credentialed man in the room. He was a lawyer who chose to say the unpopular, dangerous thing out loud while everyone around him was still hedging. The convention passed his resolution. Courage is contagious, but there's a reason. Go ahead and go to the next slide. This is a famous saying that Charlie used to have. I'd rather have courageous C students than weak A students. Charlie talked a lot about courage because he believed that courage was a choice. It did not matter your credentials, your IQ, the amount of education, whether you had graduated yet. It didn't matter if you were 6 years old or 66 years old. Courage was a choice. Go ahead, next slide. There's a saying that you may have heard that actually says courage is caught, not taught. I disagree, so I changed it. If that was true, Turning Point USA would actually not exist. We have to teach courage. It has to be taught. That's honestly why we homeschool. And that's where I want to hang here for a little bit as we talk this morning is, if courage is a choice, they need to know what they're choosing. Now, sometimes it may not be clear. They may not understand the full ramifications of if I stand up to this person, to this idea, if I stand for my faith, if I stand for American patriotic principles. They may not understand the ramifications of it, but they need to at least have the verbiage to put their passion and their convictions into speech. That's why Turning Point existed. That's why Charlie did what he did. That's why it cost him his life. So the quote I read from Patrick Henry, what jumped out to me, it's a quote we've all heard. It's an amazing quote. It's kind of like our American version of Braveheart. Like, this is the quote that everybody likes to quote when it comes to the American Revolution. And it's so powerful and it's so inspiring. And I'm assuming, but I think it's a safe assumption that Patrick Henry didn't wake up one day. He wasn't timid, fearful person who was like, man, I just don't know if I should say anything to these people. Doesn't mean that he didn't have fear when he said that, but I'm willing to bet that there were seeds planted along the way. There were people in his life that spoke into him. He had mentors, he had parents that instilled in him values that gave him the courage and the gumption and the fortitude to stand up and say, I have no clue what the rest of you are going to choose today, but if I'm the only one standing on that field, I'm going to go. Give me liberty or give me death. That is why homeschooling matters, why freedom of education matters. That's why what I do with Turning Point USA matters. I'm going to talk about that more in a minute. But that's why it matters, because the goal right now is if we can have a nice institution for children where parents are separated, let the professionals handle it. Then they get home, we're sitting around the dinner table and we're arguing over homework, we're planning out sports lessons, and to be honest, statistics say we're actually lucky if we're sitting at the dinner table together on any given night. I chose to homeschool my kids because I wanted them to hear me wrestle. And what I mean by that is when my husband and I were sitting around the dinner table and we're talking about our faith, when we're talking about culture, when we're talking about politics, whether we would agree with it or disagree, what would we do different? What was this person thinking? Why did Trump do this? I'm so glad he did this. They need to hear that. It's time spent with them, it's seeds planted, it's placing the understanding, the verbiage, and the stories of courage into their hearts and minds. As I mentioned a few minutes ago, I spent the majority of my professional life working with teachers and educators, both homeschool, private school, and occasionally the brave public school teacher. And what I would always try to leave when I spoke with them is, I have a daughter who did not learn to read until she was 12. She's profoundly dyslexic. She loves reading now, but most of her reading is audiobooks, bless her heart. She will struggle through a book, but she didn't learn to read until she was 12. So I can say, if you are one of those moms right now, when it comes to academics, your child will learn to read. Don't panic. And if not, there's accommodations for them. I am much more concerned with their character, their heart, their fortitude, and their ability to defend themselves than I am with their spelling. And hear me, I was a principal at a school for 7 years. I am much more concerned with their character than their Latin scores. Because at the end of the day, we are not raising readers. We're not raising mathematicians. Those things are important. And you're gonna hear about it, and we have resources for that. And Lisa is a wonderful resource. But big picture, the reason you're in this room and the reason we're having this conversation is because courage is caught and taught. It's caught because it's taught, because they need to hear you as their parent. They need to know what your convictions are, but they not so much what they are, but why you have them. So I know a lot of parents that are like, hey, we're gonna homeschool because the government's not gonna tell us what to do. That's fine. That's a very logical, fantastic reason, and I think you could ask anybody in this room. But why? So start to explain to them why we have limited government, why voting is so important, what happens to us as a family if we lose that right. So we have our rants, we have our pet peeves, we have the things that we like to talk about, but keep going. Don't just give your kids sound bites. Give them the full picture. That's why education freedom matters. I want to, because I have an ed talk that is 20 minutes long, and I was listening. So I will be done within 20 minutes. But if you can go to the next slide. Here's what you're gonna do, because I have been to more conferences that I can count. This is a little hard to see. So take a picture. Take a picture of my screen, and then what you're gonna do is you're gonna email it to yourself, or you're gonna text it to your spouse, because I know going to conferences, you're like, wow, that was really cool. I'd love to follow up on that. And then you're like, I don't remember that lady's name. I don't remember what the website was. Take a picture, and then you're gonna email it to yourself or text it to your spouse so you can find it. And then I'm gonna talk very quickly about these 3 divisions. And I'm gonna give you a quick overview. This is my TPUSA flyover summary. I work for the faith department. When Charlie started Turning Point, he did so actually not as a Christian organization. He started it to instill the values of free speech, preserving the Constitution, and a democratic republic with a free market capitalistic system. It's a mouthful. But he wanted to catch kids before they got indoctrinated in college. So when he started the organization, he was a believer, albeit, and to his own admission, not a strong one, but he was God-fearing. He was raised in a God-fearing home. But as he grew in his faith, he saw a greater and greater need, not just to honor Judeo-Christian values, but to start proclaiming it loudly in the public square. And so 6 years ago, 5 to 6, right as COVID was starting, Charlie infamously said, and he admitted this in his speech, that when COVID started and they said they were going to shut down churches, he said, there is no way any red-blooded American pastor is going to stand for this. Churches are going to stay open. They won't stand for this. And lo and behold, strip clubs stayed open, but churches closed. And so out of that, both grief and as he saw a need for education, Charlie and his pastor, Rob McCoy, started TPUSA Faith to arm and equip pastors, youth pastors, small group leaders, and any believer who wanted to grow in their faith, and not just in the world of civics. So yes, we are here to arm you with the understanding and the knowledge of what rights do you have as a believer, why we're never going to shut down our churches ever again, and what that looks like, but why, and how we can stand firm on that both biblically and under our Constitution. So resources for that, but more so that you know you have an ally and you are not alone in this fight. So we have the faith department, we have Turning Point Education. And I really want to hit this today and encourage you to look into Turning Point Education. They are all traveling today. I know they would have loved to have been here to give you their own TED Talk, but they have a program called Prep Year. For those of you who have older students, and even if you don't, file this away and keep it on the horizon. We are offering now through our organization a prep year program, so any student between the ages of 18 and 20 can join either a campus outside of Dallas, Fort Worth, or up in Chicago. They live on a college campus with a cohort of students for one school year, just as though they were going away to college. All books, all field trips, all materials, all room and board is $2,000 for the entire year. There is no other fees associated. They get to go to all of the national conferences and see behind the scenes. They get to work with Erica. They get to work with David Barton from Wall Builders. They get to work with one of the cohorts is going up to the Ark Encounter Museum and doing an internship. And so they work in the mornings on academics, on debate, on public speaking, on history and civics. And then in the afternoons, they have gun range training. They have cooking and survival skills. Basically, the education that the forefathers gave their kids is what we are now offering to this group of students, and it is $2,000 for the entire year. We still have just a handful of spaces left for this year, so I wanted to make sure to this group of people to put that plug in. I have information over on my table. So TPUSA Faith is a branch. We have resources there, and the website is listed. TP Education, they also offer homeschool curriculum kits. We have the prep year that I just talked about. And then we have the Turning Point student chapters, which is how most people know Turning Point. These are students who get together. They have an adult sponsor for the group, and they do community service projects. They come together for education. They bring in speakers. And everything that you do with Turning Point as far as getting engaged at the local level is completely free. We have an amazing foundation of donors that have already paid for all of this to happen. And so when we come to a church and say, hey, we have this resource for you, or we go to a school and say, hey, have you ever thought about it this way? There's no fee. We truly exist to bless the body of Christ, to protect and empower and equip students and parents as you make these educational choices for your students. So I have 2 minutes left. So the next slide, if you would. Courage is contagious, and I want to leave you with this because we've heard this before, but courage is contagious because when one person sees that it can be done, other people, all of a sudden it's like that glass ceiling is broken. And so there was the famous quote going around social media when Charlie died that now it's our turn to pick up the mic. It's not because you're inherently going, yeah, because it could cost me my life. But there's something in us that goes, if Charlie could do it, maybe I could do it. So when Charlie died, there were 900 student chapters across the United States. By this past December, about 3.5 months after he died, we had 167,000 applications for student chapters. The rate of growth and hunger that we are seeing in culture is literally biblical proportions. It says that in the last days that he will turn the hearts of the fathers to the children and the children back to the father. Bible sales are at a historic, never before seen in mankind history sales level. The rate of men specifically, men age 18 to 25 going back to church is higher than it's ever been. And that age range of men is now more conservative and God-fearing than the boomer generation. Let that sink in for a minute. That is not something that you or I or even Charlie is single-handedly responsible for. That is something that God is sovereignly doing in our country right now. So take a few minutes, check out the websites. One last slide, because I want to leave you with my contact info. It is a little hard to see, it's small, my apologies. That is my cell phone number. Text me. You can even text me right now. Send me your name, where you live, and just tell me you want resources, you want more information, if there's one specific thing you have a question on, and I will text you back. This is my full-time job. Let me be a resource to you. I'm turning it now over with 1 second to go.